Well, welcome back. This is January 2nd, 2016, and Happy New Year to everybody. Yesterday we didn't do anything because of it being New Year's Day, but Thursday we managed to get the table together, and the piece of pipe with the plate is on top of the post and bolted down, and the stretcher is in position, and I got the bracket bent out of that piece of strap steel, and boy was this a little bit of a problem. The oxygen tank that I have in the finish room there that goes with the oxyacetylene station, the oxygen got used up by my youngest son, and I wasn't aware of it at the time, and so ended up having to bend it by hand. And I used all sorts of things around here. I used the gap in the lathe there between the ways and the vise there, and at one point in time I even had it wrapped around one of these logs, not this guy, but one of the logs, the spare ones, and beating on it with a hammer trying to get it shaped properly. And I think it's going to be pretty nice for hanging a lantern from, and it looks like it belongs there, I believe. And the thing being together, it's nice and stable. It's got it's not top heavy, so we're happy with that. However, our problem is deciding how to attach the top to this stump here to turn this into a table. Remember, I showed you in an earlier segment there that the top would just I suppose look like it's, belongs there. Well, we could have done the same thing as we did over there with that black pipe, but the problem is I thought it would take away from the natural look of this little table here. So what we decided to do is take a dowel, and this is the biggest one I have as in the shop. I mean, I could turn a bigger one, but the problem is it starts getting down to the availability of drill bits. So this one here is slightly over 1 3/4 inches, and the top is 2 3/4 thick. So if we go drill a hole in the bottom of the top, if we drill a hole in the bottom about 2 inches and about 3 inches into the stump there, I think it'll be about right. So I've got a piece here that's almost 6 inches long. Problem is, though, is that if I take a caliper here, a digital, it's 95 inch and 3/4-ish on this end, and it goes everywhere to 1.95 1/28, all the way up to 51 64. So it's got all kinds of dimensions going on with it. And so since it's closer to 1 3/4, I'm walking you into the lathe area. Since it's 1 3 inches, almost 3/4 all over the place, the thing to do would be to turn it down so that it's uniform, and a person could take and use the caliper to turn it, but the problem is when you slip the caliper, here, let me chuck it in there. The problem is if you take and use the caliper as in this case the dowel is spinning, it would be a difficult to hold the caliper on there, because a lot of times when I'm turning, I'll hold the whatever I'm gauging this with to get the size properly on the back side while I'm turning with the chisel on this side. And the easiest way to do that is to take and make a block, sort of like I showed you earlier with the when we were cutting those tenons. And since I know the hole is 1 3/4 or the dowel is 1 3/4 nominal, I just drilled a hole 1 3/4, cut it off on the bandsaw, and I can use that to roll around and gauge it with. And if you look from that end, you can see it almost fits there. There's a little gap right there, and over here it kind of almost gets there, but it's just not uniform all the way. So we're just going to take and turn this down and get the dowel so that it's the same diameter all the way down, up, all the way up through this course of its length. So I'm going to try to get somewhere that works. And I'm going to pause this a second and then pick it up in a second, get everything adjusted. Okay, well, you should see the setup I got here to get this tripod over the bedways here. It's kind of screwy looking. Okay, so I've got it chucked in the lathe. Now, a person could take and, you know, use a spur drive on the one end and a live center or a dead center on the tailstock. But the problem is that you'd have to find center and then cut your, you know, line for the spur drive, and then, you know, a center line for the point on the live center or dead center, whichever one you're using. But in this case, it's a lot easier just to chuck it in a three jaw chuck. And if you have a lathe and you don't have one of those, you ought to get one, because they are a time saver. You can do so many things with them, and it's just nice. And most lathes have a threaded inboard side on the headstock, and you can have a plate made that fits a chuck so that it screws right onto your onto the headstock there. But if you don't have one, you really ought to get one. So we're going to turn it on. And you can see how it's kind of wobbling there. That's because of the inconsistency with the diameter from one end to the other. And to cure that, we're just going to take and use a scraper, because it's faster and easier, since we're going to be chuck, you have to be very careful because those jaws stick out back there. You can catch your fingers on them. So if you ever have a chuck, you gotta keep your line open. That's a possibility. Okay, so if I take and see if I'm seeing the same thing you are. If I'm put that on there, you can see how it's nice and tight all the way up. Only thing I gotta do now is do this other end, which is almost there, but it's not exactly right. Back there closer to the jaws, it's running and turning smoothly, but it's out here that is wobbling. That gives you the illusion that, well, not the illusion, it's out of round. So we're gonna fix that right now. Getting is that the hole that you see there drilled is not centered with the dowel. The outside is good, it's just the inside of the hole is going wobbly wobbly wobbly, and that's the reason why it's looking stupid. And if I take the template here and run it up and down, you can see that it's nice and true. This odd color part, this is where in this factory where this dowel was made, this used to be on a piece of furniture, and it had a threaded rod on it, then a finial was on top. And anyway, so this is the reason why it's discolored. It's true, it's just that it wasn't true from the factory, but as you can see there, it's nice all the way up and down. So we're good, and we'll pick this up and down the road. Okay, for the past few minutes I've drilled the holes in the tabletop and in the stump base, and I'm sure you guys have seen holes drilled before, so I didn't video that, but essentially I just lowered the table of the drill press down, set the stump on top of it, drilled the hole, and well, you can see all of the remnants down there. And then it came time to put it together. So everything's high tech around here. I've got a end roll of newspaper print sitting up there, weighting it down. It's glued. The top of the stump is got glue on it. The dowel is in there, and it is pretty level, and it looks nice. And the effect of the live edge top there with that natural stump looks pretty darn good. I went to my book of facts and standards for furniture and determined that from that book that a standard end table is anywhere between 21 and 24 inches from the floor to the top, and in this case I'm at almost 22 and 22 and a half, I think it is, and it looks pretty darn nice. And so I have to wait for my client to determine what stain color he wants, and I can hopefully find that out from him today and tomorrow, which would be Sunday, I can stain all of this up and get Bob over here to help me pack this thing from here into the finish room through that door you see over yonder. And we'll show you that when we get along. And in the meantime, thanks for watching. Okay, we're back, and the table has been sanded and all the hard edges removed. The purpose of that is so that it just doesn't look too good. Also to make it look sort of weathered. All of the flaky stuff and the bark and everything on the edge has been removed, and that was done with a series of sanders and picks and things like this flap sander here, and of course the disc sander there, and random orbital sander. And now I'm down to the stage of, earlier I was telling you where part of this post had been removed to get the table to slide down to the position where it is now. Problem is that with that being so shiny, with the stain that's going to go on here, that strip there will be very prominent, and it'll look like it'll stick out like a sore thumb for sure. So how do we correct that? Well, I mentioned you do a stain to gray it back to almost and very close to what that grade finish is there. But how do you do it? Well, this thing has been around for ages. I'm sure on the internet or on YouTube you'll find lots of recipes and such, but one that's been used for quite a while is nothing more than steel wool. And steel wool comes in varying grades, starting at the top, 4/0, 3/0, 2/0, and then 1/0, then number 1, 2, 3, and then down to 4, which is very coarse. The problem is you could use the coarser grits, but it takes longer because of the metal being thicker than the fine grit. So what you do is use the fine grit, and I don't use steel wool all that often here in the shop, rarely if ever. This is just for weird things that I keep it here for. But what you do is use the 4/0 and distilled white vinegar. Nothing fancy, just plain old distilled white vinegar. Pour it in a bowl. And you pour it as much as you think you're going to need. That should be more than plenty. And you take your steel wool pad and just stick it in there, douche it around a little bit. Some of the vinegar is going to get sucked up into the steel wool pad, and just let it set. And in about the course of a couple hours, it'll start to turn a rusty gray type of a color, and you just squeeze it out. And if it doesn't look like it's dark enough, then you just put the pad back in there and let it go. It'd be a good idea to take and cover it up with a rag, and so the vinegar doesn't evaporate. And then here in a bit we'll show you how it works. Okay, it's been about 3 hours now, and we can take the cover off of there. And after you douse the steel wool pad inside the liquid, you bring it up in the air and drain it. And then what you want to do is support it out of the liquid, because if it's sitting in the liquid, it's not going to rust up as fast. It'll take quite a while. So put it on something. In this case I used a chunk of steel. I suppose you could use a piece of wood, but since wood floats, but maybe the weight of the steel wool will keep it down there. What you want to do is just make sure this is elevated, your steel wool pad, so that it has a chance to rust. And you can see the oh, hang on. If I show you a fresh pad, it's obviously the way it's supposed to look. And after it's been in the vinegar for X amount of time, then it starts to look like that. And you dip it back into the vinegar and you squeeze it, and you get all this lovely junk on your hands here. And like I said, this has been around since Christ was running around fixing little red wagons. Remember, he was a carpenter, supposedly. But anyway, you squeeze it out, and the more you squeeze it, the more rust color you get. And you can, hold on. See, it's a grayish color even on my hand here. So let's take it over and give it a try based on what we got there. You don't have to mix it up too much. Just take your finger in there and kind of swirl it around a little bit. And outfit yourself with a little rag. And I'm gonna move the tripod over to the post. And since most people don't look up, we'll start up there at the top. Let's see if I can get us a little bit closer here. Readjust the height of this thing. This tripod drives me nuts. Alright, there we go. Maybe right about there. Alright, and also since I don't want to get any of the stain on the table surface itself, I'll put a little rag down here. And just take just a regular rag. Let's see, let's turn him like that. Now we're gonna get that glare off of the, there we go. Okay, and then kind of put it in there a little bit. And, okay. Well, that's not dark enough. We're going to have to put it back in there and let it rust up some more. So, I mean, it's clearly different than the gray there, but we'll get a little bit more rust color, and I think we'll be about right. We'll pick this up when we get more happening there. All right, the top of the post was flat, and we've kind of eased the edges over because we're not going to leave just the post sit there for the while, open weather and such. So what we did was we made a cap, sort of. I took a piece of galvanized metal that you see in heat and air ductwork, and first off cut a circle, and then in heat and air I happen to have a pair of these, not that I'm a heat and air person, but in the shop here we have these corrugated pliers, and what you do is you stick it on the metal and you just walk it around, and what it'll do is give you a shape similar to this, and then that will sit on the top, and that'll sit on the top, and then the water will flow off and the post will be protected. And so we're done. We're sanding now the hair and the rough stuff, and we're ready for the stain. And what we've got is two colors. It's hard to tell the difference. What'd you say?
Dowel.
Oh yeah. We got one color here is early American, and then where that pencil line is this way is Puritan pine. And between Jeff and myself, we can't tell the stinking difference. Also, we got holes drilled through the posts that go through the tenon. You can see the dowel sticking out there. We had to turn them on the lathe because none of the dowels you get in the store, I mean, if this is a 5/8, you drill a 5/8 hole, the dowel don't fit. It's loose, so we turn them on the lathe. Anyway, there we are, and maybe tomorrow when the stain is on and dried, I'll be able to spray a finish on here. Maybe we'll see what happens. Okay, here we are with the end table after it had been stained. It's been 24 hours, and the color that we used was Minwax's Puritan pine, and you can see the contrast that I was describing earlier between the maple top and the grayish stump there, and with the stain on it, all of those colors popping out such as they are, and the reflection of the like that there and down there is just gorgeous. The stump itself took the stain, and it's just amazing. And then this morning came and started staining this, the other part, but I ran out of stain, so I've got to get more to finish the bottom part there. But look at the colors that are coming through. Now this stain is hardly an hour and a half old, but the colors that are coming through there, that filler there is, I don't know if the camera is doing something weird or what, but it doesn't look as, in real life, as obscene as it looks here for some reason. I don't know why, but maybe it does, and it's just my eyes. But Jeff said we should have colored it brown, but actually I think by the time the top coat gets on there, it'll be just fine. But gosh, it really it's going to be pretty when the top coat gets on there. But like I said, this is only an hour and a half old or thereabouts. Hadn't had a chance to flash off yet, like the table over here has. So we'll carry on when we get further on. Okay, here we are with the table and the end table sitting in here in the finish room. And there's 3 coats of urethane. It's a Varathane product. It's a spar urethane, and it's a satin finish, high UV protectorant. And the coat of stain that was put on both on the log things and the slabs was the same Minwax product, Puritan pine in this case. And the 3 coats have been applied, and they are now all cured. Well, cured in between each coat. And I've got the bracket that holds the lamp fastened to the top of the post, and on the top is the cap that we showed you earlier. I'll try to get out of that light. And that is the cap and the bracket there have been painted. Well, the bracket was painted black, but both of them, the cap is left to rust naturally because it's the metal that comes from heat and air ducts. And you can see on this side where originally I showed you where that scraped off area or sanded off area was taken down to allow the table to slide down to that position there, and some portions had to get removed, and I showed you that stain that we made up with steel wool and vinegar, and you can see how it all blended in nice. I mean, you can see the difference, but had we not done that, you would have seen a big stripe there, and it would have stuck out pretty darn good. But, and then down here where the stretcher comes into the main post there, this log, apparently, this one here, was in a fire, and you can see a good example of that over here on this one, where down there it's all charcoaled, and we just left that because that's the way it was found, and figured there's no sense in changing it. And if you really look at it closely, you can see that it kind of looks just like you'd expect it to look after a fire. But all those other little doodads and valleys and crinkles and things, and the stain really brings out the color, and certainly since the top coat finish is put on there. And you can look down the stretcher and see how that the finish has made the thing stand out rather tremendously. And then over here is the little end table, the freebie, I want to think of it as, that came off of the cutoff from the main tabletop there, and then the stump or the table support portion came off the bottom of the main post here. In other words, turned upside down. And then looking down on it, you can see all those glorious colors that are coming through because of the spalted affair of this top. And same thing as with these guys. Now this is natural fluorescent lighting, so what you're seeing is exactly what kind of I'm seeing here, but I'll try to get you going down this way. And then those colors just kind of dance right out, just like I hoped they would. And coming back, you sail down that edge, the live edge line, and you can see all of the colors coming through there as well. And he's supposed to pick it up tomorrow. This is Monday, January something or another, 17th, I think, maybe. I don't know. Whatever. Pick a day as close to Monday on January 17th, 2016, and that's where I'm at. And there we go. I think it just turned out really pretty. There's the metal pipe welded to the steel plate down underneath, bolted on. Okay, well, this project is out the door. We'll start another one, and I'll see if I can get you guys, or whoever's watching this, to see what we do next. Take care from the Twisted Knot Wood Shop.